Rorschach, issue 4, Tom King writing with Jorge Fornes on the art. So this is the inspector or the detective is looking into more of where the cowgirl went, right? So her story.
We have a name for her now, or like a code name.
The
which
kid.
is the kid.
Yeah.
Rich. Okay.
So this is the story of how she kind of how she thinks after leaving her father, as we got the backstory of the last issue. But particularly the story, the detective is interviewing this guy who's in like a really high security prison, and it's someone who worked in the circus with her, because she would do a show where she would shoot bottles as the guy was juggling them, and it's really impressive. That's how the
she
issue
never
starts.
misses.
Yeah, never misses.
He drives that home, you know,
which is very important, I think, for the context of what the crime the crime scene we got.
Right.
So, but yeah, so it's this story of her befriending the strong man, right? Where so this guy fell in love with her, and he's like, oh yeah, she was a sweet kid, and she, she would talk to me. I wasn't really friends with anyone else there, but she grew close to me. We'd have lunch every day. We'd have dinner. We got really close, and it led to this moment where this drunk guy was sort of bragging about beating his wife up, and the kid came up to her, come up to this strong man out of the blue and said, "I'm going to kill him. I'm going to shoot him because he deserves it." And he didn't want her to get into trouble, so when he sort of came across this drunk guy leaning against the balcony of like, because they're at the docks, there's a seafront stuff. He decided to take it upon himself to push him over so that she wouldn't get into trouble, and he gets away with it, and it kind of they grow closer as a result. And she doesn't come to speak to him for a while, and he starts to feel really kind of like, oh no, does she not like me anymore? And then she shows up and says, "I figured out who you are." And he's like, "What do you mean? I've never lied to you about who I am." He's like, "No, I know who you are. You're Rorschach." And that's where it pivots into him explaining to the detective the way her mind works, or what her theory is, that all of the heroes from Watchmen, barring Ozymandias, who refused, but Dr. Manhattan basically destroyed all of the bodies of the other heroes, the physical bodies, and put their souls into other people. So she believes that the soul of Rorschach is in the strong man. That is what she believes. And he even believed it because she was so convincing.
She had sold it so much because the space squid attack led to, like her dad talking about the squid gets a hold of people, right? And so in order to fight that kind, Dr. Manhattan knew that they had to take the heroes and kind of do the same thing. So now the heroes can inhabit their souls can inhabit new bodies, and that's how the superheroes continue in this new world. And did you say that he's the strong man in the circus act?
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big, brawny guy. He's which also is the complete opposite of the Rorschach that we knew from the comic.
Oh,
for sure. Smaller, the smaller guy who's wiry, that he's not going to be put down. This guy's built like a professional wrestler.
And I think the pacing of like when he says this theory, and we see these panels of like all of their bodies been taken away. There's just this great empty space with no dialogue, this awkward pause before the investigator eventually says, "You've got Rorschach's soul in you." That's what she told you. There's like an awkward pause before it, and he believes it so much because he's in love with her that we get this, several pages as he's telling more of the story of him killing multiple people. Like he's going around killing people for her.
Dressed as Rorschach.
Yeah, dressed as Rorschach. Yeah. So he became Rorschach. And it's this brutal thing, and there's some little mythology stuff as he's doing this, where we hear on the TV, like when he gets caught, or just before he gets caught, one of the guys he kills is watching TV talking about the election, and it mentions that Redford won for the first time in 2016. I thought that was a really interesting year to pick.
No, he won. This would be his fourth term.
This is his fourth term in 2016. Okay.
Right, and it'd be the fourth since Nixon had 4. Yeah. Right, and Redford took over, and because Vietnam became a state in Watchmen, their 57 electoral votes, which we have a lot of issues with the Electoral College, even in fiction. 57 that puts him over, and that the Republicans are going to have to go back to the drawing board because the guy that they picked this time was supposed to bring them closer, and it didn't. So there's a lot of kind of real world illusions going on to that 2016 election of Robert Redford that led to what's going on now that the investigators looking after with, the 2020 election. And what we knew from the last issue when he was talking to the waitress at the diner and all of that stuff. So that plays in real well.
Well, I mean, we've spoken about how this issue is very much about how extremists are born and how she was brainwashed by her dad. And
that's the whole thing is, you say this is her idea of how she thinks. I don't think so. I think she realized this guy is very impressionable. And that,
sure, yeah, okay. I was saying, you're saying that she doesn't really believe this, but this is what she's told him. Okay.
This is what she's told him because she knows that she can use him to get what she wants done. And how we know how she came to the old man almost feels a lot of the same way. Like she sought him out.
Yeah. I think you have to assume that she basically convinced the old man, the artist, to the same thing.
Similar way.
Yeah.
And that here they talk about they bonded over comics and that he loved the pirate character, the big strong man. And that's what they bonded over, even though he says that he hasn't seen the movie, the new one, right? Then you find out, he's in jail. And so it's almost like she played into the whole black and white, good versus evil to this simpler guy, because as he says, I'm just a guy that can move heavy things. There's nothing special about me. But no, he's a strong man in a circus. People come to see him. He is very special.
But he's so devout because even after he's caught, because there's like a big manhunt and they all spring a trap on him, and he gets arrested and he's put in he gets shot, right, and he wakes up. And he never blames her. He actually he believes in her so devoutly. He's like, no, she's going to save the world. She's so important. She's going to do this, which makes the final page, I think, is so good because the inspector gets up and after like an awkward pause. There's no dialogue in that first panel. He just says, because the big guy's like, I never knew her name. She was always just a kid, and she's special, and she's going to save the world. He just gets up and says, the kid's name is Laura Cummings. She's dead. Found another sucker, dressed him up with the same stuff you were wearing. No one gets saved, and it's like he's heard this rhetoric come from this guy who believed all this delusional stuff that he just tries to shut it down. He almost get that he really wants to make this guy see just how crazy everything he's been saying sounds.
Right, because this guy was taken advantage of.
Yeah,
and it
immediately
wasn't like.
And this is the part that feels so true to life, right? The idea of conspiracy theories, the idea of people convincing themselves of these things, is the guy says what, and then a panel later starts laughing and says, no, that didn't stop Rorschach, and it's not stopping her either. Trust me, they're still out there, and they're still going to save the world. And it's this idea that, that conspiracy you believed in for a long time that said this was going to happen, then didn't happen. No. The goalposts have moved. It's not stopped them. Right. They're going to still do the thing.
Well, it's the power of belief, and it can be weaponized, and that's what I feel like here. She knew that. She learned that from her dad. And so whatever happened. Now, this is also a world where Dr. Manhattan exists and, weird things have happened. So who's to say that there's not a little bit of ounce of truth by the end, of something going on that this investigator is going to come across? Because, I mean, to me, that's what Watchmen is at its heart, is like, everything's what it looks like until it doesn't, because to the people, that squid's still attacked, right? But we know from the comic that was all Ozymandias' plot.
Yeah, there is no other squid. Yeah, there's no second. Because that's the other thing, is that she believes, or at least she's telling him she believes. And I think she does believe, because her dad believed it, is that the second wave of squid are coming.
Right, exactly. So we all know what the truth behind all this is, but also this is also a world where Dr. Manhattan existed and changed things.
It's almost like things are even worse because there's a plausible reason to think that something extremely bizarre could happen.
Right. So who knows? It's another. This book still so damn good.
It's fantastic. I think it's quickly. I might like it more than Strange Adventures now. I might, but it's hard. It's really tough.
They're both. Yeah,
they're
I don't
so
know
different.
if I could say one's better than the other, but they have similar themes because they're both kind of about what is the truth, in that, when you're looking back at things in Strange Adventures, like, sure, you're the hero in the moment, but what does that mean in the future? And here, it's kind of like, well, what you believe is what drives you forward, even if it's right or wrong, right? So it's they're again. This is Tom King. This and like it was a good week for Tom King this week.
Yes.
Between Bat and Cat and then this, and these are the two that I saved for last. So like, it made the whole week me struggling to get through some of the future state stuff that much sweeter.
Yeah, Rorschach was the last thing I read as well, and it was kind of intentional just to leave like this to the end.
Because where it's been, I feel like it's gonna ruin the next thing I read.
Yeah.
Because it's not as good, and just the Fornes art here, it's not so much in the shadows until we see this big hulking, Rorschach running around. Everything is very much in the light, which is kind of different than what we've had, which was a nice change, with his story of the carnival and all this other stuff and the story of the kid. And,
we're starting to see the bigger picture, so it makes sense that it's more in the light. But it also, I do feel there's going to be a swerve for the detective where it's going to get worse again because there's going to be like a new element that's introduced that actually adds more mystery to it. But right now, he feels like he understands who this girl is and what type of person she was.
The idea that she never misses and yet she missed. What is that about? Like that now just keeps getting brought up to me.
That's the sticking point. That's the thing that doesn't add up now. Because otherwise it feels like you could sort of predict what this is now. But we have, we have, what, 8 more issues? And
8 more? Yeah. We're at the quarter of the way through and we're still not any more clear than we were at the first. Like, we have her motivation now.
Yes.
But not so much how she ended up.
And we have themes now. I like the social commentary about
big time.
Extremism and manipulation of people and into a following and political, like all that stuff is there, and it's been so well done and it speaks to the real world so much that King knows exactly what he's doing. I
mean, this is a guy that still lives in DC. He is immersed in that world.
Oh yeah.
So
he literally had to alter where he walks his dog because of the extra security after the Capitol incident. So
so like and the fact that he was in the CIA and like he just has this. It's nice. It's finding a way through comics. Yeah, because that was the other thing is that they bonded over comics and the way that they talk about it. And I got Tom King's perspective on comics too, which I like, where he's like, yeah, some people say that they're just for kids, but actually they're for everybody, So the fact, like all of this stuff, it's almost like he's working out his thoughts on what's going on now in 2020, 2021 in the pages of something most people think are for kids. That's just another layer.
Much like the TV show. I mean, Alan Moore probably hates them, but I think that this is using the Watchmen property to tell to tell a story and talk about something the same way that Watchmen did. I mean, regardless of quality, which one if you think, I mean, obviously I'm not saying Tom King's as good as Alan Moore. I mean, that's a bold statement.
No, but I feel like it's almost kind of like what Alan Moore did with Superman. He didn't change Superman exactly, just the stories that he told. He added another layer to them, right? So like he created these Watchmen characters based off of the Charlton characters, and now they're not necessarily using them; they're using what they represent to tell that story. Because the TV show does the same thing. Like sure, Silk Spectre shows up, but other than that, you're talking about these characters that existed and what that means in the world now. And I think that's a very smart way versus how they did like the before Watchmen, where you're very much in there with those characters, that leads to those events. This is the fallout. And even Doomsday Clock. I mean, sure, Adrian Veidt's a character in there, but it feels like it's honoring Watchmen, not just using its name. If that makes sense.
But that's a fantastic issue. Matt, what are you giving Rorschach issue 4?
This is a 9.5.
Oh, I was going to go to straight 9, but I respect it. 9 out of 10 from me.